Dude, I know that you got some. I know he's been there. Nice. I was just listening. Yeah, he got it. He got it. Where? So this is a Europe. Yeah, okay. I saw a kid there. And she doesn't. I didn't know that. I didn't see his feet. Maybe he just rolled out of bed. And then it's cool. No, like, when I got home, 4 o'clock, I see that. Those are the stuff going in. It should be work, right? Unless you're at the beach. I know. No. No. I mean, it's not that OSHA cares, but you care about your own little toes. Yeah, exactly. It's like these kids walking out their hands. Good rats. I mean, how you gonna run? How you gonna run? Or they run holding their pants up. It's a thing called a belt. Give yourself. That's not cool. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it looks like you're a dick. He's got a lot, but maintain what? Or holding their hand up. Oh, my God. I was there on Friday for 8 hours. Why? Anything happened? Well, no. Well, I chose not to because I just was pissed off to be there. But there's food available here. Works right there. People get a drug test this place. Look for bathrooms. You're eating like you're out in the moment. No, let's go. I said, very much the same with my grandmother. Put your feet, put your
I just heard something. They were seniors.
Yeah.
And they had.
Well, you know. Alternate. You know what? I mean, you could very well see that stuff. And if you know how to get in, you're going to get in. The only thing is, but it's done right. They can get it done. I mean,
I asked Cleve about it. So I always don't know what teachers would have.
Pretty significant hospital.
Yeah. It's like really embarrassing. I don't know if that was like on my thing. I think I did say like
come back at 5 o'clock Eastern. Awesome. Appreciate you. So all
They're so close. I know they're very but they are really close.
Oh, no, I
Sitting on each other. I feel like he's stuck. I do.
And the sheer fatigue and fear was so different as we discussed. So you're in for it. Yeah, I mean, he'll come and I cannot.
She's like ready to do nutritional. Because I got worked out, I'm like not in the way.
No, it's usually
Yes. My parents.
Who joins me in wishing the damn thing would simply be canceled? Who still actually wants to be there? Oh yeah, you feel like you got it. But the prospect of it being canceled altogether is still welcome to, you know, another email. Especially since no new language is prepared for things, it simply says we've been very clear on this. I have to be super careful because your question involves now.
What you want to do.
Well, you can thank me anytime.
Too late already. Yeah, but I'm about to get us to the room. Which is nice, because I went to school in Europe. Well, yeah, so it's free. So I never had to pay for that. She's going, well, she's not to Washington State.
That's a good school though.
Yeah.
Worth it.
Yeah.
Don't study through.
Yeah, exactly. So we can like be on the front legs.
Unless you're training. Unless you're training.
Need to work on my stamina.
So,
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. Hopefully everyone is recovered from the weekend.
What happened over the weekend?
I don't know. Nerd prom? I think that's what they call it. You never know. Okay, so I have a couple, like two things at the top, and then we can get into it. So I want to begin actually on a solemn note. Over the weekend, deadly storms devastated communities across the Midwest. We are praying for those impacted and the families who lost loved ones, as well as those who were injured. The White House is coordinating with state and local officials, and we stand ready to provide support as needed. FEMA will be on the ground today to assess the extent of the damage, and tomorrow, the FEMA administrator will travel to Oklahoma to meet with state and tribal leaders and hear directly from those who have been impacted. We are grateful for the first responders and rescue teams who have been working around the clock. Residents should remain vigilant and continue to heed the instructions of local officials. Turning to this week, today kicks off National Small Business Week. Under President Biden's leadership, we have empowered small businesses and small business owners nationwide, leading to a small business boom. We have seen historic growth in business applications over the last 3 years, and we're on pace to set more records in 2024. There have been more than 17 million new business applications filed during the Biden-Harris administration. Building on this progress, the Small Business Administration announced that our administration has awarded a record amount of federal contract dollars to small businesses. And we are releasing the third annual Small Business Boom Report, which shows how SBA has nearly doubled small dollar loans to small businesses compared to 2020. To highlight this work, Vice President Harris is kicking off her National Economic Opportunity Tour in Atlanta, where she will meet with small business owners who are taking advantage of how resources to help launch and scale their businesses. The President and Vice President will continue fighting congressional Republicans' attacks on small businesses, including their attempts to cut SBA funding by 31%. And I lied, I have one more thing for you, and then we'll get going. Looking ahead to later this week, the President will travel to Wilmington, North Carolina on Thursday to discuss how his investigation in America is rebuilding our infrastructure and creating good paying jobs in Wilmington and across the country. We certainly will have additional information for all of you in the days ahead, and please stay tuned. With that, hey Darlene.
Hi. Thank you.
Hello.
2 foreign questions and then 1 quick domestic one. Does the White House see any forward progress with the latest hostage deal that Secretary Blinken described as extraordinarily generous on the part of Israel?
So a couple of things. As you know, we put out a readout yesterday that the president, the call that the president had with Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, and the significant focus of that call was obviously on securing the release of all hostages and paving the way to a prolonged ceasefire that would provide relief to the people of Gaza. In recent days, there has been new progress in talks, and currently the onus is indeed on Hamas. There is a deal on the table, and they need to take it. We believe that all efforts need to be brought to bear to convince Hamas to accept the proposal immediately. And so to that end, just a little information for all of you, this afternoon, the president will speak with the Emir of Qatar and President of Egypt. Secretary Blinken, as just you noted in your question, is in the region right now to carry out the same message that I just laid out to you. This has been a sustained effort, and the United States is not alone in this effort. You saw our joint statement, the joint statement last week with the 17 other world leaders demanding that Hamas release our citizens without delay. And so we're going to continue to have those conversations. It is a priority. It is a priority to get those hostages home. It is a priority to get to a ceasefire, and is obviously a priority to get that all-important humanitarian aid into Gaza.
Would the U.S. or the White House see any potential arrests by the ICC as an aggravating factor in the negotiations?
So we've been really clear about the ICC investigation. We do not support it. We don't believe that they have the jurisdiction, and I'm just going to leave it there for now.
On U.S. and Mexico, the joint statement from President Biden and López Obrador today talked about agreeing to implement immediately concrete measures to significantly reduce irregular border crossings. Have those concrete measures already been agreed to, and can you give any detail on what they are?
Yep, as you just mentioned, the president and the president of Mexico, our president and the president of Mexico spoke yesterday. There was a joint statement that we put out. I'm going to be really careful here. I'm not going to get ahead of what was laid out in the statement. But this is, I would say, this is a continued commitment to strengthening the bilateral relationship that we have and the regional cooperation. And let's not forget that regional cooperation will benefit here, Mexico. So I'm not going to go beyond the readout, that joint statement that came out.
Following up on that, Darlene mentioned Secretary Blinken did describe this new proposal as extraordinarily generous. Can you explain a little what he meant by that? What about this new proposal is so generous?
I'm not going to characterize the proposal. I'm not going to get into any of the specifics, but what we believe is that now is the time for Hamas to take this deal. It is on the table. It is way past time to get these hostages home. It is way past time to get to a ceasefire, and we need to make sure we continue to get that humanitarian aid. As we know, it is a dire situation in Gaza. I just don't have anything to share beyond what the secretary spoke to. He's going to obviously meet with regional partners as he's there to continue that pressure, to continue that conversation, to continue that diplomacy that's needed in this time. But Hamas needs to take this deal.
And on another continuing conversation, is there any update on this in-person meeting between Israeli and U.S. officials that keeps being pushed down?
Are you talking about the Rafah,
Yes.
in regards to the Rafah operations? Look, as you know, Israel has a lot on their plate. They had to deal with what occurred with Iran, and so they've been pretty busy, and in the last couple of weeks, having to protect their security. And so we have had 2 virtual meetings that Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, has led. We believe that they've been productive. We believe that the Israeli government is taking our concerns into account, and those conversations are going to continue.
But is it still your expectation that there will at some point
We would like to have an in-person meeting. That is certainly what we would like to do. But in the meantime, we've had 2 important virtual meetings, and in the readout yesterday, we mentioned that the potential Rafah operations did come up between the 2 leaders in their conversation.
And just on another topic where obviously everyone's watching today what's going on at Columbia University, has the president or anyone from the White House spoken to university leadership? Is the president satisfied with how they're handling the situation?
So I will say this. Look, and we've said this many times, this is nothing new. The president has always been clear that while Americans have the right to peacefully protest, that's something that we believe here in this administration. He stands squarely against any rhetoric, violent rhetoric, any hate threats. And physical intimidation and hate speech. Obviously, we believe, and we have said, anti-Semitism is dangerous. It is hate speech, and it is abhorrent. And there is no place for anti-Semitism on campuses or anywhere else. It is a painful moment. We get that. We get that it is a painful moment that Americans are dealing with. And free expression has to be done within the law. And you know, we're going to continue to be very clear about that. That has not changed. We've been very consistent. Okay, Jeff.
Thanks, Craig. Does the White House have a reaction to the Central Kitchen's decision to restart operations in Gaza?
Can I just first say that the work that humanitarian aid workers do is brave, is incredibly important, and it is good to hear that they are going back to do the brave work that they continue to do, not just in Gaza, obviously in Haiti and Sudan and many other places around the country, around the globe, pardon me. And so we're happy to hear that. As you know, the president had a conversation with the prime minister about making sure that we deconflict and protect the lives of humanitarian aid workers as they're out there being brave, offering assistance to Palestinians in Gaza. And so we have seen some steps being taken by Israel to do just that, and we will always encourage and continue to have those discussions with Israel to do more. And so we are certainly encouraged by that, by humanitarian aid workers from WCK going back out there, and also encouraged by the steps that the Israeli government has taken to make sure that more humanitarian aid gets in.
Did you consult with them at all about that decision, and are you confident that the aid workers are not going to be at further risk? So
we're going to continue to be very clear with the Israeli government on making sure that they are protected, humanitarian aid workers are protected, and we have seen some progress in that deconflicting, and we have seen aid increase. I do want to lay out a couple of things that in the aid, humanitarian aid going in, that we've seen increase. Overall, nearly 5,000 trucks have entered Gaza since early April. That includes almost 200 humanitarian and commercial trucks a day, on average entering Gaza in the last 3 weeks. Some days 400 plus truckloads enter. The United States conducted over 30 airdrops for relief supplies, including over 1 million meals, 141,300 bottles of water to Gaza as of April 28th. And a lot of that is because of the president stepping in and making very clear that we need to do more. And the United States have led in the effort on getting that humanitarian aid.
Just lastly, a follow-up on Mary's question.
Yeah.
Does the White House support peaceful protesters at Columbia or elsewhere being threatened with being removed from the school or being put on discipline or probation?
So,
is that,
sorry,
do you
I'm
think
so
that is fair?
So got to be super mindful. These are institutions, some of them are private, some of them are public, and it is up to their leadership, university leadership and colleges, to make that decision. Not going to weigh in on that from here. We're going to continue to say all Americans have the right to peacefully protest. At the same time, we have to call out any hateful rhetoric that we hear. Anti-Semitism is wrong, and so we're going to continue to do that. But universities and colleges make their own decisions. It is up to their leadership. We're not going to weigh in from here. Okay, Alicia.
Thank you, Corinne. Our new CBS News poll found that registered voters in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania believe that they would be financially better off if Trump wins. How do you explain that?
Going to be careful because we're talking about registered voters. We're talking about a candidate now, obviously the former president who's now a candidate. I got to be mindful of the Hatch Act, and so can't can't speak to that specifically, but what I will say more broadly is we understand what Americans have gone through. We understand that the pandemic was a heavy, heavy burden on Americans. We understand that Putin's aggression into Ukraine caused inflation to rise, right? Pandemic caused inflation to rise, caused damages to the supply chain. And so that's why the president took action. The American Rescue Plan obviously was incredibly important in turning the economy around, dealing with the supply chains. And we also understand that prices are still too high. They're still too high. So this is why you hear us talk about junk fees. This is why you hear us talk about lowering prescription drugs. It is important making sure that big corporations and billionaires pay their fair share. And so we're going to do more work, and we're hoping that message gets through to the American people. That's why you've seen the president in New Hampshire, in Las Vegas, in Madison, Wisconsin, laying down that message directly to the American people. But there is a contrast here. There's a stark contrast to what we see, what the president has been doing, this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, and what Republicans are trying to do. They literally put out a budget that cuts Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and gives special interest groups, billionaires and corporations, a tax break. The president doesn't believe that. So that's what I will say. I have to be really mindful to not speak specifically to that poll, but more broadly, that's what I can say, and we understand what Americans are feeling right now. That's what we're trying to do more.
Is the president frustrated that despite the fact that he continues to say what he has done, that some Americans are not feeling the impact of his policies?
So, look, we have seen some consumer confidence go up over the past couple of months, and I think that's important to note. And so that is out there, that data is out there. Look, we're talking about a president who understands what it feels like to sit around your kitchen table and have to make difficult decisions. We get that. He gets that. This is why he's trying to build an economy from the bottom up, middle out. He's been very, very clear about this. This is a sympathetic president, so he gets it. So he's not going to be frustrated by that. What he's going to do is continue to do the additional work to lower cost and do everything that we can there, and to go out there and speak directly to the American people. I think that's the most effective way to do that.
Just one quick follow-up on Jeff and Mary, and correct me if you are
Jeff and Mary.
Jeff
and Mary. I'm sorry. Your colleagues. It felt like Jeff and Mary. Oh gosh. All right.
So
I do know who you guys are. Right?
I'm sorry if I missed this, but is the answer no? The administration has not been in touch with anyone at Columbia.
I don't have any readout. I should have answered that in I believe that was Jeff's question. I don't have any calls to read out to you of conversations with any university leaders at this time. Obviously, the president's going to go speak at Morehouse, and so we've been in touch with them because he's going to deliver a commencement speech. He's looking forward to doing that. It is such an important moment in time for graduates, and he's going to go obviously to West Point. Those are the two that he's doing. Go ahead.
Thanks.
Thanks, Corinne. I wanted to go back to last week. The administration announced that it was again delaying.
Last week.
I know. All the way back a few
All the
days
way
ago.
back.
The administration announced that it was again delaying potential ban on menthol cigarettes.
Yeah.
What do you say to critics that say this decision is prioritizing politics over health outcomes? And can you give a timeline for this decision to actually be made?
So, look, Secretary Becerra obviously put out a statement on this, I believe on Friday. And I'll say this, look, the rule garnered a lot of attention, historic attention, and during the public comment period, obviously. And so we got an immense amount of feedback, and this is including various comments and feedback from civil rights organizations and also the criminal justice movement. And we want to be really mindful to that. And so obviously there's more conversations to be had, and we have to really address the concerns of civil rights leaders and also the criminal justice leaders, and also the many, many Americans who wanted to make sure that their voices were being heard. And so it's going to take more time. I don't have a timeline. This is an OMB process. They're going to run through that process, and we just want to make sure that we deal with this significant policy issues that are in front of us right now.
The Secretary of State met with the Saudi Crown Prince today. Obviously, they're talking primarily about the hostage ceasefire deal, but I'm wondering, headed into the summer months, if that conversation, or any conversation with the Saudis recently, have touched on oil production and what you'd like to see from it.
So look, I don't have anything to say about that piece. I think the State Department, this is Blinken's trip, if that came up, they will have more to say on that. I don't want to lose the importance of the Secretary being in the region right now. We have to get this hostage deal done. It's on the table for Hamas to take. The Secretary is going to meet with the regional partners, and it is time only Hamas is standing in the way right now. It is time to move. We got to get these hostages home. We got to get to a ceasefire, and we got to continue to get that humanitarian aid. It is dire. The situation is dire in Gaza, as you all know.
The last quick one, the Washington Post had a lengthy story today detailing efforts by Indian intelligence services to carry out an assassination in the United States. Now that some of those, I know you were asked about it when this first emerged, but now that the details are known, can you talk about how, if at all, this has impacted our relationship with India?
Yeah.
What steps we may be taking to make sure that something like this doesn't happen?
So any specifics, there's an investigation, as you know, going on. So as you just stated in your question to me, and a criminal investigation, the Department of Justice obviously is running that. So anything specific to that, I would have to refer you to the DOJ. Look, India is an important strategic partner here in the United States, of the United States. So we are pursuing an ambitious agenda to expand our cooperation in several areas. As you know, we've been really consistent about that and have laid that out multiple times, whether it's a meeting here with the Prime Minister or a meeting abroad. This is a serious matter, and we're taking that very, very seriously. The government of India has been very clear with us that they are taking this seriously and will investigate, and we expect that accountability from the government based on that. And so, but we're going to continue to raise our concerns. That's not going to stop. We're going to continue to raise our concerns directly with the Indian government. Okay, Gabe.
Karine, with regards to the ICC's potential warrants, I know you said that it's the White House's position that the ICC does not have jurisdiction, but did the issue come up yesterday during the President's call with Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I don't have anything to read out beyond the readout. I don't have anything to lay out there. Obviously, and I said this moments ago, what was significantly discussed, the primary focus of that call was obviously that hostage deal, getting to a ceasefire, getting humanitarian aid into Gaza. That was incredibly important, and obviously our continued support for Israel's security. That continues to be ironclad. Obviously, that we've shown that, but we need to get to that hostage deal. We need to get the hostages home. We need to get to a ceasefire, and that was the primary conversation. And obviously, the Rafah operations was discussed as well.
Is the U.S. directly involved in any diplomatic effort to prevent those warrants from being issued?
I don't have anything beyond that. Look, we just don't. We don't believe it's in the ICC jurisdiction in this situation. We do not support the investigation, and I think that kind of answers that question when we say we do not support this and we do not believe it's in their jurisdiction, ICC's jurisdiction.
Excuse me.
No, sorry.
I'm sorry.
No. Just have a little bit to say. It was okay. Okay, go ahead. Jake.
Switching gears to another topic and following up on what you said earlier about the protests in Colombia. Earlier you talked about how you didn't want to comment on what school administrators might do, but the protesters themselves have now defied a 2 p.m. deadline. Should they leave?
The protesters themselves have?
Yes, there was a deadline for them to leave by 2 p.m. and they have not done so. What does the White House think?
You mean that Colombia has said there is a 2 p.m. deadline for them? Okay. I'm just not going to comment on leadership at colleges and universities, their decisions. That's for them to decide. We've been very clear. Americans have the right to peacefully protest, and we're going to continue to call out any type of hateful rhetoric, any type of potential hateful violence here. It has no place in America. Anti-Semitism, we're going to call out. It is abhorrent, and that is hate speech. We're just going to be consistent. When it comes to those types of decisions on campuses, that is something for college, universities, leadership to decide on.
finally, one more, Corinne, as a dog lover himself,
Oh, gosh.
what does the president and the White House think about Kristi Noem's upcoming book?
Yeah, I saw that. It's very sad. It's very sad. It's a sad story. That's all I have for you. It's sad. Go ahead.
Thanks, Corinne. More broadly, is the White House concerned about safety issues at university graduations this year?
I'll say this, and I kind of said this at the top. Commencement day for college kids is such an important day. You all know that. I'm sure you all have experienced how important it is that day, not just for you or for them in this case, but for parents and loved ones who are here to celebrate. To celebrate their loved one graduating from college, and that is really important. It is important that Americans are given the opportunity to peacefully protest. We have to make sure that is something that is afforded to Americans, and respecting what commencements are truly about. Those things are really important. We hope that schools can hold commencement celebrations while respecting difficult viewpoints that we're seeing right now in these issues, and we understand that it is a painful moment.
Is the White House in touch with, or the Department of Education in touch with universities to check on their planning or security measures?
So I would refer you to Department of Education on that. I don't have anything to share at this time from here. Go ahead, Asma.
Thanks, Corinne. What is the administration's response specifically to the use of police force in some of these college campus protests? We saw this at Indiana University, Ohio State, and UT Austin.
Yeah, so again, I'm going to be really repetitive here. Americans have the right to peacefully protest within the law. That is really important here. Anti-Semitism is dangerous. I know, we've seen the videos that have pretty much gone viral out there, and I can't speak to that. We may have more to say about those videos once we look into that. We'd have to look into them. Just don't have anything to share beyond that. But it is important. It is important for Americans to have the right to peacefully protest. We understand this is within the law, and we understand this is a difficult time, and we're going to call out any type of hateful rhetoric.
And so does the administration think the police force or police presence we've seen so far is acceptable?
Look, as far as police presence, that's up to the colleges and the universities. That's for them to decide. And we have to be able to allow Americans to peacefully protest within the law. That is important, and that's what the president wants to see. I can't comment on every case. I can't comment on everything that we're seeing out there. What I can speak to is more broadly and what we want to see and what we've called out.
If I can shift gears real quick, I know there was discussion, the president himself also referenced the idea of an immigration-related executive order. Is there any update on that front?
Look, and I've said this many times before, we believe the bipartisan proposal that came out of the Senate that Republicans rejected because of the former president saying that it hurts him politically helps the president and not himself, not Donald Trump. That's what we saw. That proposal will do the significant work needed at the border, the significant work to move forward on a broken immigration system. That's what we want to see. In the meantime, we always said that we don't believe moving with an executive action is the way to go. We want to see that proposal, but we're always going to look at all options. I don't have a decision to be made. I don't have anything to announce, but we're going to continue to call on Republicans, call on Congress to move that that bipartisan Senate proposal forward. Okay.
Thanks, Green. A couple of questions for you on Saudi Arabia and also on Ukraine as well.
Yeah.
Secretary Blinken has obviously been in Riyadh discussing the Israel-Hamas war. He's also been discussing the Abraham Accords and normalization of ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel. How confident is the U.S. that those talks can be revived?
Look, we're going to continue to have those diplomatic conversations. It's important to do so. We got to be confident. We're going to be confident that that it gets to a place where we have a solution here. And so I can't go beyond that. The secretary, as you said, is in Saudi Arabia. He's going to have look. the important part about what we're trying to do this week and what you're seeing Secretary Blinken, what you've heard from the readout and heard me talk about, you read yourself the readout from the president with his call to Prime Minister Netanyahu, is to get to this hostage deal. We got to get to this hostage deal so we can get to a ceasefire, get that all important, continue to get that humanitarian aid into Gaza. We know the situation in Gaza is dire, and they also had a conversation about the Rafah operations. And so that is really the focus here. That is the significant focus. It is important to get to that deal.
The U.S. also said that it's preparing to offer a security package to Saudi. What would that entail?
I don't have anything to share on that.
Okay. On Ukraine, Ukraine's lost more ground in the last couple of days as it awaits U.S. aid to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any updates on the state of that shipment?
So the aid into Ukraine is ongoing. They have been receiving that security assistance. I'm going to be really mindful here because there are operational security that I want to be careful. And what we hope is it gets to the front lines so that Ukraine could continue to defend itself. And like you said, they have lost ground, and so we're hoping to get that security aid to the brave people in Ukraine. And so, look, it's ongoing. That aid is getting into Ukraine. I want to be really, really mindful on speaking to operational security from here, from the podium. I would refer to the Department of Defense for anything further. Okay, go ahead, Garen.
Thanks, Corinne. First on, as you mentioned, the Vice President kicked off her economic opportunity tour today in Atlanta, which is a majority black city. Next week she'll be in Detroit, another majority black city. It seems like the administration is trying to reach black Americans in particular as it relates to the economy. Data suggests that black Americans feel economically burdened and are not aware of some of the work that the administration has done. According to an Economist YouGov poll, only 22% of black Americans feel they are they feel like they're not economically better off than they were a year ago. Does the White House believe that this tour, or hope that this tour will help change perceptions amongst black Americans as it relates to the economy?
So a couple of things. I think Weijia asked me this question, but a more broader sense of how people are feeling about the economy. And we think it's very important, the Biden-Harris administration, to go out there and to talk directly to the American people. We believe that if they hear from us, they will know exactly what we've been doing and how we've been delivering. But we also understand that people are still feeling that prices are too high. They feel that the economy is not working for them. And so we're going to lay out what we've done this past three and a half years almost in this administration. And as it relates to the black community, when the president walked in, unemployment was above 9%. Now it's at a record low in the black community. Now it's at a record low around 5%. That's because of the work that this president has done. Black wealth jumped up by 60%. That's important. That's because of the work that this president has done. But we understand, especially as it relates to the black community, housing is important. We understand that prices, again, are too low. And so we're going to do the work in the black community, yes, but also for all communities. And so having that conversation, and we believe this tour that the vice president is going to do is important. But we're going to speak to all communities, black communities and every other community out there who have felt what the pandemic has done and what the high inflation that came after Russia's war into Ukraine. And so we're going to continue to do the work, whether it's talking about junk fees, lowering prescription drug costs, which we've been able to do, continuing to do that, healthcare costs more broadly. This is incredibly important to this president.
Just one more question.
Sure.
The Carnegie Endowment for International Peace has a study that came out a few days ago, amongst a study of black Americans. 45% feel a connection to Palestinians, which aligns with reporting and data that suggests that black Americans see a similarity between their historical subjugation and what Palestinians are experiencing. What is the White House message to black Americans who have distinctly supported this president and feel like his policies go against what they believe morally and see this connection to what's happening to Palestinians?
And it's the message that we have said to Arab Americans, Palestinian Americans, Muslim Americans, and many Americans here who are looking at this moment, and it is incredibly painful. We understand. This is a painful moment for many. And that's why White House officials, including this president, has had many conversations with communities, leaders of those communities, to talk about, to hear from them, to listen to them, and to talk about how to move forward. And it is also why it is so important that the President spoke to the Prime Minister of